What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna be working on this third gen Ram. Belongs to my buddy Justin. We got some big turbo upgrades coming. It's already got some pretty big turbos, as you guys can see, but for Justin it just wasn't enough, so they gotta go. Now this truck is already pretty bad to the bone as it is. We just took it to Diesels in the Mountains. It just made 1,200 and some odd horsepower.
I remember Roberto from last year.
Roberto's gonna put a good show all the way from New Mexico.
A little over 1,200 horse. It's been basically kind of his daily driver when it's not in the shop. At least we've done a ton of upgrades on this truck. We've done pretty much the entire build short of the wheels, tires, suspension. Quick rundown on the truck. It's a third gen Dodge, as you can tell. It's got one of our Frank Built Performance 1500 FS 6.7 engine. Basically Frank Built Performance street ported head, cast pistons, stock bore. It's got Waggler Street Fighter connecting rods. It's got 14 mil mains. So yeah, pretty much an identical build to my personal 6.7 that I had for the third gen. It's also got a set of Dynamite 200% injectors. It's got an Exergy 14 mil CP3 injection pump. And currently for air, it's already got 467, 488 compounds. We got a Banks intercooler, Banks intake ram, you know, all the good stuff. But we got bigger coming. Now this truck already is an all-around performer. Like I said, we did 1,200 horse on the dyno. I used this truck in the past, actually last year's Diesels in the Mountains, to pull my truck, and it performed flawlessly. I mean, 85 mile an hour up the hill, passing cars, no problem. So really an awesome all-around build. But once he got that bug with 1,200 horsepower, you know, he already looked at me. I had these turbos that we're gonna put on for sale. They were actually built for my third gen, so kind of just here we are. It ended up happening. That's the thing with horsepower. It's like a drug. You get addicted and you just want more. But at the end of the day, it's a ton of fun. And let's get into it. Got the man himself with the goods. Huge shout out to our boy Ryan at 6651, knocking out the powder. I'm gonna go ahead and just wait. I'll show you guys this in a minute. Got everything in here. So we got our intercooler, charge pipes, turbo covers. We got our power driven air filter. Huge thanks to them. They had actually sent me that when this was my kit, but just for my buddy Justin, I'm gonna let him have it.
Oh yeah.
You pretty stoked about this, huh?
Oh yeah, big power.
Yeah. He fell into the same trap that I did when I got my first truck built, right? You show up and you think 1,200 horsepower is big stuff, and then you realize you're like fourth in the class and big twin on the dyno. So with this setup, we're shooting for at least 1,400, if not 1,500 on the same fueling that he already has. And if he ever really gets spicy with it, he could always spray it and see where it ends up. But man, look at that. So we did a clear gloss powder coat on the charge pipes, and then the same blue that the rest of the engine is on the turbo covers. And then on the Mishimoto intercooler, we went ahead and did a kind of a flat black as well with the V-band clamps, which you guys will see in a minute. All right, give you guys a quick peek before we start tearing apart the truck. Man, look at this. We got gloss clear on all the charge pipes, V-bands, all powdered. We even did the intercooler because it was raw. This is gonna look sick. All right, so at this point we got the AC draining because I'm gonna take this condenser off. Obviously the intercooler, everything's coming out. And before we get started, just gonna wipe down all the charge system because it is a little dirty. Don't wanna scratch it up because we are selling it, but yeah, gonna get you guys on the old tripod and get her torn down. All right, so we're pretty much at the halfway point. We got the old turbos out, got the new spacer on. Justin's going ahead and cleaning up some of the stuff while we're able to get into it right now. We got to swap this injection line from the Banks one to a stock one. And then we're going to see this side. It's going to be curious to see if that cold side charge pipe will fit. But we'll find out. So now, start going together with the new turbo kit. And another complication that we might face is this shock tower. When I built the kit on my truck, I have shock tower deletes and really didn't plan for that. So guess we're gonna find out. So here's the new setup. So the old setup again, 467, 488, both journal bearing Borg Warner based. These are a little bit bigger. So on the manifold, we got a VS Racing 76 mil 89 T4 dual ball bearing, so spins nice and quick. And then on the atmosphere, we got this chonker of a GT55, again a VS Racing 106 mil, and yeah, so that's going to be quite the upgrade. I made about 1500, well I made exactly 1550 horse on a 80 Borg with a 98 mil GT55 last year. So this amount of air I think is going to be just the right amount for our power goals here. Well, unfortunately, as I suspected, that shock tower is going to have to go. Like I said, when I initially built the kit for my truck, I was not even worried about a shock tower, and honestly, it didn't even cross our mind until I was halfway through tearing out the other kit and looking at that big old shock tower and how his piping was. So gonna go ahead and rip out that shock and that shock tower and start getting the rest of the turbo kit pipe together. Luckily, you'll see in another episode, we got some changes coming on that front anyway, so what was gonna happen either way, just gonna have to start today. No bueno there. Yeah, I didn't think so. So again, on this side, I didn't have any sort of battery or any of this stuff. So our cold side charge pipe kind of goes out and has free reign over this area. So again, that'll be another thing that we have to tackle. Be taking out this battery box, moving the TIPM, messing around with all this wiring. So this kind of escalated quickly, but that's how these things go. Be careful. See if that's the right thread. Man, look at that. Golly. We're back working on Justin's truck. We got the turbos all finished up. Today, we got our last project, or at least major project that we got to do on Justin's truck. And that is, we're going to take all this wiring, and I'm going to show you guys how to get rid of that, or at least hide it. This will be the first time I've done it on a later third gen, which has this big old block, which is what hindered me from doing it in the first place. We also got the battery that's relocated to the bottom. We got the dual battery bank down there, and we're going to take all this mess of wiring and really just clean up this entire engine bay. If you guys seen, you know, my engine bay on my third gen and a lot of other third gens and, you know, other trucks in general, cleaning up all this wiring really just makes a huge difference in the overall look and quality of the engine bay on these trucks. All right, so the first step that I'm going to tackle in this project is this whole area right here, as far as the battery box. Got to get that ripped out and then start clearing out these battery cables, which we don't need here anymore because again the batteries are down on the frame. I'm gonna have to make new cables, or at least double up on the cables, because we already did have one of them on the frame, the one that was already here before. So now we just put both of them on the frame. But yeah, first thing to do, we got this battery box. You got some 12 or 13 millimeter bolts here and here, and then there's a couple more on this side, and we got the TIPM got to move. We got a couple bolts here, and then there's some underneath that we're gonna have to remove this inner fender weld to reach. So So I'm gonna get started on that first thing. All right, so like I said, we got a couple bolts under here with the fender well for the battery box. You got that one there, one here, and the ones up top. So we got that. We'll go ahead and clean up some of this wiring too while we're here. So what I'm gonna do now is get you guys set up on the tripod while we get all this torn apart. That battery box removed, you can see we got a lot more room for activities here. I struggled a little bit because I did forget there is on this ABS module, there is a bolt on the the back side here, so I forgot about that. But otherwise, again, pretty straightforward. You got bolts here, and then it all just kind of comes out. And now we got all this wiring. We got to figure out what we're gonna do with it. And a quick tip here, if you got a lot of aftermarket wiring like this truck did, and you're not really sure what it is, you can zip tie it all together just to kind of keep it all organized, especially when we're going to have so much wiring kind of going everywhere. Now what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start getting all this accessory wiring torn apart off of the actual harness, because you can see we got accessory wiring for the amp module, I think this is the fast relay. We got a bunch of wiring for all the lights and accessories he's got on here. That we're gonna have to figure out something to do with, because we got relays and harness and all this that is gonna have to ideally get tucked away somewhere. So the best course of action right now is to just cut all the zip ties that are keeping everything together, really just untangle this mess as much as you can, and then you can kind of start working on it one by one, because obviously the main thing is to get this main harness in, and then after that the accessory harness is pretty easy. There's going to be some things we might have to shorten, some things we might have to lengthen. So really just get it all apart will be the first step. All right, guys, we're back. I had to leave on Sunday, kind of left off where I was. I've been dealing with some pain in my leg lately. I have really my whole adult life I've had varicose veins in my legs. So just a little too much pain to keep going. But anyway, I digress. Today, I went ahead and finished pulling the rest of this harness. You can kind of get a look at what the nice clean look is going to be once we're done here. And I've, of course, got the wiper cowl off, because pretty much what we've got to do is we're going to drill a hole here. We're going to drill a hole right about there in the middle, and then we got to drill another hole here in the cowl to basically run all this harness through. So in the middle here, we got this plug, which used to be this big plug here. If you look, these plugs are actually two separate plugs that are just in like this big old plastic housing, so you can pull them apart. Same thing up here with the female side. Basically, all the connections going to be made inside the cowl instead of out here in the open. Then for this bracket where this plug used to be, just got a 10 mil up top here that we got to pull out, and that whole bracket's just going to get thrown in the garbage. So yeah, what we're working with right now, we got our right angle drill and the biggest hole saw I got, which is a 2 1/4. It's just about the size of these connectors, which is about the biggest connectors that we have to put through any holes. Gonna have to do some die grinding, which is gonna be in this area here. But other than that, we'll go ahead and start the drilling, and we'll get this hole done. We can start putting this harness through the cowl. It's literally just gonna go run through here and run behind this part here, and we're gonna probably have to take off the wiper cowl and open up this hole here. That way we can actually connect these connectors a lot easier. On my truck, I didn't trim that, and it just made it a little more pain in the butt when I did need to disconnect these harnesses. All right, so you've seen I got all the holes drilled out. Use the right angle drill bit with the hole saw like I showed you, and then what I did was I just did 2 holes, and then I used like a die grinder to kind of oval it out. I did it on that one as well. That side, because there's only a couple wires that actually come out of there, just did the 1 hole. Also went ahead and used some of this trim to kind of give a barrier so it's not just metal, won't catch on the harness or anything like that. Got the plugs already up in here from the harness that used to be here. I got that bracket out, and that plug is all gone. For these plugs that went up top, you basically just had to break them off the plastic surround. So the only other thing to note is, I don't know if you can mix them up, but you need to label these. They're A and B, or at least that's what they labeled them. Again, I'm not sure if you can even mix them up, but I just did in case, because they do look the same. So we'll see. So now what we got to do is go ahead and just take all this and feed it up into there. Oh yeah, I also cut open this hole too, and I really just sanded it up, that way it looks almost factory. It's hard to tell that, you know, it's hard to tell that it was even just cut up. So that's pretty nice. And yeah, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and feed all of this into there. The only other little modification we're gonna have to make is taking off this rubber boot for the wiper blade motor. It went right here, so anyway, that's all we got to do with that. But for now, I'll get this run inside here. Again, just a couple connections we got to make. As far as these 2 connectors, I think I'm just going to zip tie them around, because now there's no locking, like factory way of locking it now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and zip tie it, and that'll be that. All right, so you've seen I got all the harness ran inside there, and I did confirm that you can plug these 2 plugs. They can be swapped around, so definitely make sure you label them up. You can see, because there's no clip anymore, I just used some zip ties and got it super tight and clipped them together. So we'll see, make sure that works. There is one harness you are going to have to extend, at least if you do it the way I'm doing it, which is your brake sensor that goes right here. And what I'm going to do is, since this wire that originally went to the, well, that goes to the wiper motor, originally ran here, I'm going to I cut this plug off of here. We'll extend this harness out, wrap it up real nice, and run it through here. Outside of that, I was able to get the starter exciter wire up and through. That connected, that actually fit. And now I'm kind of in a planning stage, because we got all this aftermarket wiring for his lights up front. We have an amp step module that I was originally going to run up in here, but I'm kind of debating just putting it on the frame and hiding it away. And then right here, I'm gonna probably take off this plastic piece so I can hide the harness kind of back in here, because where the TIPM is going to go is pretty much somewhere in this area. It's pretty much where I'm at. I'm just going to keep kind of trucking along, and I'll keep updating you guys as I come up with stuff. All right, so quick update. We got that harness all wrapped up nice and clean, got it thrown back there. I pulled the TIPM out because we got to modify that, so I'll show you that here in a second. Like I said, we had to extend this wire, waiting on some conduit to make it nice and clean. And then we got one more wire that's for our boost sensor that's going to go here on the charge pipe. But yeah, trucking right along. Now the next little project that we got on our hands here is the TIPM. So like I was telling you guys, we're going to be relocating it. I got this nice bracket. Basically what we got to do is get this bracket to mount on here like so. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to strip out the interior, the actual module part, and I'm probably going to just go ahead and cut off all these pieces, all these extra pieces that were like the mounting points for the original mount, because obviously we're not going to need that with this mount. So that's what we're doing here. So you guys see what I did? I just drilled these 2 holes, and then I went ahead and riveted them in. And where they're located, there's nothing in the way. So as long as you put it in the right spot, you should be good. I lied. So when I went to put this down on this side, where these rivets were was actually contacting this area, so I just kind of cut out that area, and we're going to see if it actually goes back in now. There's no metal or there's no electrical, so I'm not worried about any of that, but just worried about getting this to sit back down in there correctly. Now when I did it, it happened when I tried to screw it down on these sides, so let's see. Seems better. Make sure all our plugs came through. We look good. All of our pins are through on the bottom side. I think that did the trick. Now, if you guys are wondering what this wire is that I just ran through, it's a little trick that I did. I'm sure other people do it too. So for like an exciter wire, for this one I think is for the fast, or maybe the amp step, something like that, for a key on power where you need to tap the fuse, you take out one of these plugs, usually this one, drill through on the back side, and you can run the wire through the back, so it's really nice and clean and it doesn't affect the operation of your door. I've seen where some people, they'll like trim the bottom here and run the wire out. I just feel like this is the cleanest way, in my opinion. So that's how that goes. You can see it's nice and mounted. It reuses a couple existing holes in the body already. And obviously we're gonna replace these bolts with some nice stainless button heads maybe. We might even get this powder coated, but I think overall it looks pretty sweet. We still gotta run a power wire. My plan is to run the power wire kind of up and over and then tuck it back, run it down to the starter. But we're kind of trucking along here as far as getting this all knocked out. You can already see it's really cleaned up that whole cowl area. Future Frank here, and as I was doing the editing for this video, I realized I left a little something out, mainly on the battery relocation. You guys seen we got rid of the battery that originally went here, and we relocated it to underneath. So I'm gonna show you that right now. Actually, I have a few things to show on here, but first off, as you can see, we got the dual battery set up underneath the frame here. Justin was very adamant about having dual batteries. He didn't want to just go to a single battery. So we got this pretty solid mount fabricated up here. And we got everything wired up. Try to get you a good view up here. We got the basically military style battery clamps, they call them. And then we got all 2/0 gauge copper wire. Basically what we got, our grounds go directly to the frame here. And then this kind of reuses some of the old battery setup, because we did originally have one battery under here, the original passenger battery. So pretty much we got a ground that goes from the frame to the body, and then forward we have a frame to engine ground. And then the other thing we did was, remember that mess of wiring that was up in the cowl? We relocated some of the fuses and the power to this fuse block here. We got some relays, we got a auxiliary fan for our trans cooler back here. We got one of the fuses for the fast, obviously, and then what I also did was I relocated the amp module to right here. In hindsight, I would have moved it a little further back. I actually had this I had the transmission transfer case out, and that's when I installed that the other day. Quick note on the battery cable situation: make sure whatever cables you're using are good quality. So these are from Battery Cable USA, and they're actual copper wires, not just like copper clad silver or whatever the heck. So that makes a huge difference. As far as our power wire, we just got one. I think that's 2/0. This goes all the way to the starter here that I have out currently because I'm gonna paint it. The other thing I did while the trans was out, I went ahead and relocated the alternator wire. So instead of running up and over the cowl or the radiator shroud like the factory one does, it drops down. I got some P clamps on order. We're gonna clamp them to the original oil pan bolts, and then that wire is gonna go up and around the bell housing with some P clamps again and connect to the starter as well. All right guys, so we got everything wrapped up on Justin's truck. About to show you guys the finished product. It looks fantastic. Trust me, everything we did is well worth it. And first off, I want to apologize. I know this video got kind of weird, kind of cut off in the middle. And initially, this is going to be a 2-video deal with just the turbos on one video and the electrical stuff on the other. But technical difficulties, I'm still learning here, still getting back into the swing of this YouTube thing, and I messed up. So obviously, it became one video, but overall, covered everything we needed to cover. So now, the big reveal. Start off with, we got the turbos all installed. You can see we got our Vibrant Vangeon flange clamps, and let me tell you, these charge pipes were a little bit of a bear. In hindsight, I would definitely do the Vibrant clamps on both sides, give a little bit more wiggle room. I am a little bit concerned with the V-bands on both the intake there and the turbo side with the stock motor mount, so we might have to switch something up, but you know, so far so good. One thing I didn't cover was making the oil feed and return lines. On the feed side, we went with a -4. On the big turbo, we did a -12 drain, which was the recommendation from VS. On the manifold charger, I did have a little issue because they recommended that we use their drain adapter because it will actually seal around on the turbo itself, and their adapter is a -12. And I didn't want to do a -12 drains. So I went ahead and did a -10 to 12 adapter. And with that, I had to sand it down. I don't know if you guys can see that. The engine's actually still hot, and I'm trying to get it in there so you guys can see. But really, that was the only issue I ran into on this. I had a little bit of an oil leak on that flange, got that fixed. And after that, she's been ripping, guys. You can see we still got a little bit of work to do with this ABS module. We've been deciding what we're going to do as far as make custom lines, relocate this, you know, but that's going to be basically its own little project. But overall, you can see how we got everything cleaned up. The TIPM mounted up nice and clean. Harness is all tucked away. I mean, I'm going to give you guys a quick before and after. Both, you're going to see the old turbos and the mess that it was before. And I'm telling you, huge change. As far as this turbo kit, once again, is a 7689 VS dual ball bearing turbo, T4 115 exhaust housing, I believe. And this is their GT55 dual ball bearing 106 mil. Don't remember the turbine and all that. But basically, this is a well north of 1500 horse capable turbo kit. And again, we got a set of Dynamite 200% injectors. We got an Exergy Race CP3 14 mil down there. And we got one of my engines in here, transmission. So really, we have all the parts to make big power. It'll really just come down to making it happen. I'm gonna show you guys a couple of driving clips. I got some. We're still getting it dialed in, getting the tune in. But let me tell you, for how much power this truck can make, it drives fantastic. Super stoked about it. And I would highly recommend this setup. So far, I would highly recommend this setup to anybody, because this will be a good all-around setup for making big power, and I would have no problem towing behind it as well. Man, this setup, like I said, it drives great. Check this out. This is on tune 3, I believe. Able to just cruise, no problem. Get into third gear. Just cruising, no problem, nice and clean. But you want to get into it, these chargers, they just light right up. Again, I just want to show how clean this setup drives. are going to be making on this setup. And with how big these turbos are, they are very responsive. I would have no problem hooking up a trailer behind this truck and just towing, you know, anything that you would need to do. Here's a good shot of just how responsive this setup is.
Alright guys, if you stuck around this long in the video, I really appreciate it, and it would help me out a lot if you dropped a like down below. If you guys haven't subscribed already, I mean, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more stuff like this. I got a lot more planned, getting these videos rolled out, getting back on track on the whole YouTube thing. I really appreciate you guys' support. It really means a lot to me. There's a lot of work that goes into making these videos. It does slow down the work process, and of course there's the added time of making the videos and doing everything else. So, you know, your guys' support, it really does mean a lot to me. The biggest thing here is trying to build a community where we can really thrive together, answer questions, you know, build something, build cool stuff, and, you know, just be all together basically. So again, really appreciate you guys. And if you guys need any parts for your diesel truck, Cummins, Power Stroke, Duramax pickup trucks, check out frankbuiltperformance.com. Got a ton of parts from all your favorite brands. And if you don't see something that you're looking for on the website, just hit me up directly. I'm a dealer for pretty much every brand on the market, at least all the good ones. So if you're looking for a part for your truck and you want to support the channel, that will be the best way. I really appreciate it, guys. But with that, we'll see you next time.